Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Conversation and Calculation episode. Unclear if it's 19 or 20 because whatever, we have a couple of episodes in the works. To be determined. We have a very special guest on today. Why doesn't our guest introduce themselves?
Hi, my name is Yonatan Sturm. I'm currently a student at YU, and I have the privilege of being a friend of Ellie's.
Aw, thank you. So what brings you to YU? What are you doing here?
So what brings me to YU? Good question. So, to be honest, coming to YU wasn't really so much of a decision. I went to high school at a modern Orthodox high school in Teaneck called TABC.
Oh,
and
of course.
yeah, and happens to be that they're the, I guess, most typical route for kids who graduate to take is to go to YU. I would say like maybe somewhere between half and 2/3 of my high school grade went to YU, and when I was deciding on a college, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to come to a place where I get to learn both Torah and secular studies at a high level, and to be in a Jewish environment with great rebbeim, teachers, friends, minyanim, kosher food. It's all great. So
yeah, it's so funny because I'm coming from like pretty much the opposite perspective, where coming to YU was probably the biggest decision that I ever made in my life. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love it. And I made the decision for all the same reasons as you. It's just that it's very funny to see, like, right now Sarachek is going on. And to me, my only exposure to Sarachek was that I had heard about it in, like, the Five Towns Jewish Chimes. Mm-hmm. And, I sometimes saw, like, a YouTube link for it or something. But, my high school definitely did not participate. First of all, I was thinking about it last night. Huge shout out to whoever conceived of the Sarachek tournament. Absolutely genius marketing ploy in terms of creating YU and making it the epicenter of modern Orthodox high schools. It's absolutely genius. They literally just made up a tournament, and suddenly now they are at the epicenter of modern Orthodox high schools. It's genius.
Yeah, seriously, it is. It is definitely a big move.
Yeah.
It's definitely great for I guess just in general, kind of like to bring like more unity to like the modern Orthodox community as a whole.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's absolutely beautiful.
And then also, I guess specifically, it's nice in that a lot of kids come from out of town. Maybe kids who aren't necessarily like as connected to like modern Orthodox values, and they come to YU and they come for a basketball tournament and have a good time, but they they get exposed to like you were saying, the epicenter of the modern Orthodox community, and it's really nice because I think a lot of people I guess get more attracted to the culture here and to the lifestyle, and maybe end up coming here because of that, which is really nice. And just overall, it's just a nice thing overall, in that brings more Jews together, and obviously it's a big competition, but in the end of the day, it's just something that brings Jews together, and things that bring Jews together are always great. So
yeah, I find something to be particularly fascinating, that it bridges gaps. I see that that's what it does, because there's, even within modern Orthodoxy, a large spectrum, and yet something like this, like a basketball tournament, suddenly just bridges all the gaps, and everybody is on the same team, not but
yes.
But metaphorically everybody's on the same team,
right.
And I find it to be so beautiful. So I hate asking this question, but I'm going to ask it for our audience. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're majoring in, your career plans, if you have any, just where you see the future taking you.
Sure, yeah. So I'm currently in my second year in NYU. I'm technically a junior because I have a year of credit from studying in Israel for 2 years.
Where'd you study in Israel?
In Shalvim.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Right. You had mentioned that.
Yeah. So I think God had a great experience there. And I'm majoring in psychology and actually planning on going into dentistry. Now that might sound a little weird because what does psychology have to do with dentistry? But the way it works with dentistry is to go to dental school, you have to take certain science requirements that don't actually add up to a major. And on top of that, I have to major in something. So I chose to major in psychology because I find it very interesting. So in a way, I'm majoring in that and then also majoring in pre-dental in a way.
That's really cool.
So yeah, it is cool, and my hope is to graduate YU the end of next year, meaning a year from this May, and then apply to dental school after that. So
that's awesome.
With God's help, I hope works out.
All right, that's amazing. That sounds like an incredible plan. It's funny. I also find myself in a similar situation where I'm majoring in psychology as well. I'm majoring in psychology and English, and I genuinely don't know where my career path lies. I'm kind of just pursuing the things that I find interesting. So it's funny, how kind of overlap there.
Right. Any general ideas of where you might want to?
So I'm interested in clinical psychology. So perhaps there, but I'm also interested in podcasting. I'm also interested in acting. So I'm also interested in writing. So I'm trying to just pursue as much as I can.
Right.
At the same time.
Right. Well, now you're in a great position to do that, being in college and being able to explore your interests and find what speaks to you. So
yeah, that's something that I found Yeshiva University to be particularly adept to, which is it just it cultivates a culture where people pursue their dreams in a frum setting, and it's fascinating to see. I'm in the school play, and 5 out of the 9 cast members said that they're freshmen, and this is their first time ever acting.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just it's very cool because they're trying something new. Yeah, they're trying something new. They're coming to YU and they're trying something new, and I find it to be just fascinating to see.
Right. What play is this that you're going to be performing?
Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, opening night, Monday, April 4th, Old Timers Game by Lee Blessing. It is a story of intergenerational conflict, relationships, and baseball.
Sounds great.
Yeah. It's a beautifully written story, and we got some really talented actors, so it's gonna be awesome. And we're directed by the amazing Ruvain Russell. So
sounds good.
Get your tickets. Tickets go on sale. I believe yesterday they started going on sale. So yeah, get your tickets.
Yeah, all you listeners out there, you better get your tickets. This guy's gonna put on a great show, so you all better be there.
Stop. All right. So what I like to do with a lot of my guests is play this game. Are you interested?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. The rules are very simple. You read the card. You pick a card at random. Read the card. Answer the question.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan?
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. Question is, how has peer pressure shaped your life?
Ooh.
That's a good one. So,
by the way, another rule to the game is if you ever feel uncomfortable with answering a question, just feel free to pass.
Yeah, sure. So that's a good question. I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently. Like I said, I went to Shalvim in Israel for just about 2 years to learn in yeshiva, and unfortunately, I think as as is the case in many yeshivas, there was definitely an element of peer pressure there to try to maximize your time spent learning Torah, and it kind of like created a little bit of a form of like competition between guys, and in a sense that was good because it motivated guys to like really try to do their best and make the most of their time. But at the same time, it definitely put a little sense of pressure onto people to like hold up to certain standards and kind of stick with the yeshiva the yeshiva procedure and standard for things. So that definitely affected me a little bit in yeshiva. And then I remember distinctly at YU, it affecting me very much, and also in a very negative way. So in yeshiva is a little more simple because, I'm not sure if you listeners out there are all familiar, but the way the typical yeshiva is set up is that you're there primarily learning Torah, and there aren't really many other responsibilities or things going on. So to keep up with like a pretty standard schedule of learning, it's definitely difficult, but there's not so much else going on. So if everyone else is doing that, it's not necessarily so difficult to do that. So fine, that was my experience in yeshiva. But then when I came to YU at the beginning of last year, I had a very difficult time with that because I had been used to having only learning as like a focus, as a responsibility. That I come to YU and I need to deal with my classes and try to take my studies seriously and do well, and try to think big picture about what I want to do down the road with my life, and other personal matters that came up over time. And obviously that is a lot more to deal with than just focusing primarily on learning. Now in YU, part of I guess the culture to somewhat of a significant degree is that a lot of the guys who come from yeshiva to YU, meaning guys who come from yeshiva in Israel, having spent a lot of time learning, they come to YU and they try to maintain a lot of their dedication and focus that they had in yeshiva, which means that they try to maximize on their learning as much as they can. Some of them, also try to maximize on their classes as much as they can. Some of them maybe not as much. But personally, by nature, I try to take my schooling seriously and try to make it a priority also. And I found this inner conflict within me about how I wanted to kind of hold up to the standards that most other guys held up to, which would be pushing themselves to keep up with as much learning as they could and maximizing their time, often leaving very little time for personal interests or leisure. And I very much felt this peer pressure to do that, and it was very difficult for me because over the course of much of the year last year, I kind of did that, meaning I kind of let the peer pressure get to me, and even though I knew that it wasn't healthy, it wasn't always good for me, I kind of just wanted to fit in with everyone else and try to do what everyone else was doing, which I don't think was necessarily the best thing for me. So over the course of this year, I think I've been noticing this a lot recently, how kind of naturally I've tried to take a much more personal approach to things, meaning I try to do what I think is best for me, regardless of what those around me are doing, which can be very difficult at times because everyone has that inner desire to fit in, to hold up to certain standards which are maintained. But for me, I feel that doing what's best for me is what's best. It's what's most healthy for me. And I found that it's been really great to dedicate more time to focusing on myself, to focusing on things that are important to me, and making those things a priority, regardless of what other people think. And to be honest, I think it's a little bit silly that a person should go about their life in a way that other people, based on how other people perceive them, and based on other standards that other people take. Every person is his own person, or his or her own person, and every person needs to do what's best for him or her. And I think that God created us in a way that every person is unique, and every person has certain interests, certain passions, certain strengths, certain weaknesses, and each person needs to try to go about their life doing what's best for them. So I think that, to answer the question, and I guess to sum it up, right? How has peer pressure shaped my life? So definitely something that I used to struggle with a lot and continue to struggle with somewhat, but I think something that over time I've learned to I guess not let it take the best of me, and to really try to be my own person and do my own thing as best as I can.
Wow, that really resonates with me a lot. It's funny though, again, that we're coming at this from very different perspectives, and I feel that coming to YU is the first time in my life that I don't feel that peer pressure. Now, that could be because I'm coming from outside of the YU system, and so, I guess I just haven't acclimated yet. But I definitely, feel you in regards to the peer pressure that goes in yeshiva, and I have a very love-hate relationship with it. Meaning, I think that it does promote productivity, but at the same time, I know personally, there were times when it felt like a race, and I felt like I lost the race. So I was like, okay, what's the point now? I lost the race, so
yeah,
and that's a very unhealthy mindset. So, I'm still the verdict is still out on my thoughts on peer pressure.
Right. Well, it is somewhat of a fine line to draw. Meaning, there's an idea in in the Torah that it's called kinas sofrim tarbe chachma, that being jealous of others in terms of pursuing Torah knowledge and just general spiritual growth is a good thing, right? That is a fundamental idea within Judaism, but at the same time the Torah also speaks a lot about not being jealous and not doing what others are doing, and the importance of learning what a person is interested in as opposed to what other people learn. So it's a very fine line to draw, because on the one hand, that peer pressure can motivate a person to let's say to reach levels that he maybe wouldn't have otherwise. But there's also somewhat of an unhealthy side to it of feeling let down when you don't hold up to certain standards, and feeling overwhelmed when certain standards are a little too much for you. So it's definitely it's definitely a hard line to draw, but I guess important to be aware of the balance between it.
Yeah, I really hear you.
Yeah,
that resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, so I'm curious for you, Ellie. You went to, remind me where you went to yeshiva again?
So in Israel, I went to Torah Chaim, and for high school, I went to Shar HaTorah in Queens.
So, to my understanding, it's not so typical for guys from those institutions to end up in YU?
Oh, definitely not. I am one of very few.
So I'm curious to hear what went into making you decide to come to YU, even though that maybe isn't what most of your peers are doing.
So I was in third year yeshiva, Shana Gimel, and at that point it's third year. There's no such thing. There's Shana Aleph and Shana Bet. There's such thing as Shana Gimel. It's third year at that point.
There is, depends where you're institutionalized, but
yeah. So I was in third year base medrash, and I just knew I'd always valued education a lot, and I knew that I really wanted to seriously pursue a college education. My options before me were Ner Yisrael with Johns Hopkins or Stevenson University, which is a phenomenal program, and I have friends there and they really enjoy it. And then there was also Shar Yashiv and then some New York's state college, which is also a lot of my friends are doing it. The thing was, I was looking for a serious college education and a serious yeshiva, but I also wanted serious extracurricular opportunities. So I kind of just thought that Ner Yisrael couldn't really offer that. And while going to a place, let's just say like Queens, could have offered that, but why would I want to do that in a not Jewish setting when I could do it in a Jewish setting? So that was what drew me to YU, that it's a full-fledged yeshiva and a full-fledged university without compromising on either end. Now, that also plays into why I decided to go to YU over Turo, because Turo is also a phenomenal institution. They have a very different ideology than YU, at least from my limited research. And it would seem that YU's ideology is that we are a full-fledged yeshiva and we are a full-fledged university. There are going to be conflicts, and we are going to have to deal with it. Turo is more of the ideology that there are going to be conflicts, so we're going to compromise. So I didn't want to compromise. I understand that makes things more difficult, but I really didn't want to compromise. So here I am.
Wow. Yeah, that resonates with me a lot. I could say definitely throughout my experience at YU, I've come to like see a lot how it's really amazing how in one place there's just so much to offer.
Right.
Like you were saying, it's it has the perks of being an amazing yeshiva, an amazing college, an amazing opportunity for extracurriculars and pursuing personal interests. And it's all here in one place with other religious Jews. And it's like you have so many different opportunities to pursue.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing. And then also the point you were making about like, dealing with the conflict as opposed to trying to like resolve the conflict or like avoid the conflict, let's say. I think it's also something very important that YU does, because the nature of the world is just that there are conflicts between things, like religious and secular values conflict sometimes, and you have to deal with that. Like in the real world, when people go out into the workplace and people pursue whatever things they might be pursuing, so there are conflicts, and there are there's Torah values, there's secular values, and there's a big world out there. So it's important to understand that and to learn how to deal with that, as opposed to compromising on certain values, right? Like you were saying that some people might do. It's important to be able to appreciate and understand these conflicts and to learn how to deal with them, because you can't go about life just compromising and avoiding different conflicts. They're going to be there, and there's nothing there's nothing you could do, and you have to be able to handle that. So
I just want to point out, though, that not to discredit those who take the route of compromising. There is merit to that, and I understand that we're trying to resolve conflicts. I personally enjoy living with the dichotomy. So that's more of like a personal preference. I don't think that it's more correct to live in this oxymoronic state. I think that's what resonates with me and I appreciate. So that's what I wanted to do. Just so that we're clear, so that like I'm not discrediting people, in other institutions who resolve this conflict in other ways.
Right. I definitely agree with Ellie on that. I think that different people, different institutions might take different approaches to dealing with big issues, particularly this issue of conflict of values. And again, definitely don't want to criticize other places or people who do take that approach, more just to highlight the positives of the approach that YU takes.
Exactly.
I think.
Exactly.
Definitely everyone else is definitely more than welcome to, have whatever perspective they want to have. I can't, take away from that. And definitely don't want to criticize that, but just, I think me and Ellie and I from our experiences at YU feel that these are some great advantages that YU has to offer.
Yeah. So I really feel you with the.
Yeah.
All right. Should we pick another card?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. I'll pick a card this time.
Sure. Oh, blue card this time.
What conversation do you need to have to set yourself free?
It's a pretty broad question.
Pretty broad. I think I have an idea.
Okay.
So if you want, I can answer while you think, unless you have an idea.
Either way, I don't know. I guess I could take this however I want, but I don't know if that's meant to be a conversation between me and myself, conversation between me and others. I don't know, like, what do you think, Elliot?
That's deep. Interesting. So it happens to be that I'm at a point in my life where I'm very open with, my predicament, my behaviors, and I think that I feel like the necessity of a conversation is when there has to be a transference of information between two parties.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think right now that there's a lack of transference of information between myself and anyone in my life at the moment. So I would say that this more has to be an internal conversation where I take a harsh look at myself and see where I have inconsistencies in my life. Yeah. And I think that's really the conversation that I need to have. It's a conversation with myself about the inconsistencies in my life.
Interesting.
Which is funny because we're just coming off of the conversation about how YU creates this environment of inconsistencies, and whatever. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing that I have inconsistencies in my life, but I definitely need to address them.
Right. Well, I think everyone has their own personal form of inconsistencies that they deal with, and definitely important to be like self-aware and to assess like how you're doing with regard to that, and make sure you're dealing with it in a healthy way. Whatever. I mean, obviously, everyone has their own personal things that they struggle with, and personal things that they find challenging, and definitely important to be aware of those things, and to not shy away from them and try to suppress them, and to like internally be aware and focused on those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Any thoughts? Let me just look at the wording of the question because I want to Okay, what conversation do you need to have to set yourself free? Okay. Um, so, um, I don't want this to like sound too cliche, but I find that
we've determined on this podcast that things are cliche for a reason.
I hear.
Yeah. So be as cliche as you want.
Yeah. So I think within Judaism, the idea of davening or tefillah is supposed to be a conversation between a person and God and Hashem, I find that personally I struggle a lot with davening. It's often very hard for me to focus and very hard to connect to, but I guess more in principle and in an ideal setting, I think that a proper conversation between me and Hashem through davening, through tefillah, is, I guess, what would set me free. Meaning, davening is supposed to be an opportunity for a person to take a break from everything that's going on in the world and kind of reset and refocus on his or her priorities, on his or her things that he or she is prioritizing, and to, I guess, refocus on the fact that everything we're doing is really all, in the big picture, is really all for Hashem, right? That's why we're created. That's why we're here. So that opportunity in davening to have a conversation just between you and Hashem, discuss what. I mean, obviously, again, in when I'm saying this, it sounds crazy even to me, because at least when I'm davening, I very often just space out and just get to the end of whatever I'm saying and have no clue what I
said. Feels
like
anything but a conversation.
Exactly, but there are definitely times when I felt this, and I guess ideally this is how it should be. That davening is a way for a person to converse with Hashem and to the question, right? The question is, what conversation do you need to have to set yourself free? So I find that often can set myself that I find that there are times when I feel this, and again, this is ideally how it should be, that having a proper conversation with Hashem through tefillah is really able to set a person free. At least personally, I often have a lot on my mind and things I'm trying to deal with, and there's often a lot going on, especially for us guys here at YU. Like we were saying before, there's a whole lot going on here.
Yeah.
And it can be a lot. It can be a lot to handle, to deal with, both emotionally, mentally. It's a lot. That's for us too, and in the specific context of YU right now, but just in life in general. I think for both of us and for probably a lot of people out there. And I find that when you're able to do that, when you're able to have that conversation in tefillah, it can really free you from all those emotional and mental struggles in a way, because again, you refocus and you reconsider how everything that you're doing here is really all for Hashem, and the things that you're struggling with hopefully are things that are bringing you closer to Hashem, and in the big picture are kind of leading you on that path. And then when you become aware of that and you are able to have a conversation about that, it really frees you from all those emotional and mental challenges. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Nice. I like that a lot. And it's funny, in my mind, our answers weren't that different, because the verbiage for davening in Hebrew is lehitpalel, right? Pilel, the shoresh, pe lamed lamed, means to ascertain or to judge. And whenever we refer to tefillah, it's in the reflexive, what's that called? When different, what's that called? There's the is it the Hifil, the
Oh yeah.
Pilel?
Yeah. Well, I'm honestly blanking. Whatever.
I don't know what it's called. Whatever. In Diktuk.
Probably retake Hebrew here.
I should probably retake Hebrew. I actually didn't take Hebrew yet, so we're
You'll get there.
Sorry, Dr. Berman. Yeah. So once I take Hebrew at YU, then I will know. But until then, it's in the reflexive form, the hit palel. So that literally translates to ascertain or judge oneself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my approach to tefillah, that there are two different modalities of tefillah in my mind. There is a conversation with myself and a conversation with Hashem. Amen. There are conversations with myself and conversations with Hashem. So I find that a lot of my tefillah is a conversation with myself. So it's funny how you hopped on to saying that tefillah is the conversation you need to have, and I said that I need to have a conversation with myself. So it's just funny. I see a lot of parallels.
Yes, definitely, for sure. And that's kind of I think what tefillah is it's taking your personal thoughts and your personal goals and like translating that to speaking to Hashem. But it definitely, it's like kind of both like what's the word?
Introspection,
as well as I don't know how you would describe conversation between a person and God, but however whatever adjective you would use to describe that, I think it's both of those.
There's got to be a word for it.
Yeah,
there's got to be a word for it.
There's got to be a word. If anyone out there wants to contact Ellie and let us know,
comment below what the word is.
Comment below. It would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so we have time for some more cards if you're down.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Sweet.
Let's do a red one maybe.
All right.
Or if it's more pink, whatever. What's your definition of a success? These are good questions.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this deck of cards. I find it to be really.
Where'd you find this?
Amazon, like everything else.
It's very good.
Yeah.
What's your definition of success?
I have a thought, but if you want,
feel free to share. Yeah.
So, my definition of success, I would say, this is again going to sound cliche, but hey, cliches are cliche for a reason. I would say my definition of success is the knowledge that I tried my hardest. That's what I would say is my definition of success. And I think I really feel that. That's got to be the most uncertain sentence I've ever said, but I think I really feel that way. That success, the barometer of success is effort and not results.
Yeah, I hear that. So when I think about this, my definition, of success. So I definitely agree with you that I feel that success is not, or at least should not be, goal or result oriented. I definitely agree that there's definitely an important aspect of trying your hardest and working hard. I think I want to take a different perspective on it. I think success, at least for me, can be assessed by kind of thinking about what my priorities are and in general just focusing on the positive things. I know for me something that I struggle with, and I think a lot of others struggle with as well, is to kind of feel unsuccessful because of the things they lacked to do or the things they did incorrectly, and people often neglect all the positive things that they do accomplish, that they do, that they do. So I think for me, something that has helped me a lot, that actually a rabbi here at YU, Rabbi Benny Krohn,
I love Rabbi Krohn.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. Any of you YU people listening out there, if you get the chance, definitely get to know Rabbi Krohn. He's a great resource.
Yeah.
But I remember speaking to him last year about this issue that I had been struggling with, about kind of feeling there were so many things that I wanted to be doing, but I just wasn't accomplishing them. I wasn't prioritizing them. And he said, okay, fine, you're not reaching those goals necessarily, and there might be a few things that you're missing out on, but look at how much you are accomplishing. And like that was in the context of the day-to-day life at YU, and I felt that like I wasn't focusing on my Torah learning enough. I wasn't taking my classes seriously enough. I wasn't making time to spend. I wasn't making enough time to spend with friends. And he said, okay, fine, you're never going to have the perfect balance between all those things, but like look at what you are doing on a daily basis. You have a very rigorous schedule with a lot of Torah learning, a lot of time dedicated to secular classes, and you have a lot of great friends around, and you're able to make time for them when you can, and you should focus on the successes of that. So I think I guess it's a more general definition, but for each person within whatever context it might be, to focus on the things that they're doing right, and to appreciate those things, and feel accomplished with those things, as opposed to being bogged down thinking about the things that I might have been able to do, or things that I messed up and didn't do right. I think that's an important perspective to have.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Actually, I want to make sure we get to this because Ellie brought it up before, and he said, "Oh, maybe we should talk about this on the podcast." So I don't want the podcast to end without us discussing this. So as you guys can probably see, I mean, this will be video. I mean, it's being videoed, but
yeah.
I'm still used to like the whole idea of like a video podcast being posted on Spotify, whatever. But as you guys can see, I'm wearing a Camp Hask sweatshirt. So I worked in Camp Hask this past summer, and think I had a great experience there. Now, on that phone right there, that's Ellie's phone. He's videoing me. So there's a Camp Simcha sticker on the phone. So right before we started the podcast. So I noticed a sticker on Ellie's phone, and I said, "Wow, you worked in Camp Simcha. That's awesome." He's like, "Yeah, I've been there for the last bunch of summers." I said, "That's really cool. I worked there. I think it was like 3 summers ago now." And Ellie said, "Interesting how you both worked in Camp Hask and Camp Simcha. Like that's not very common. There's like a lot of beef or like conflict between the two." And I said, "Yeah, I think that that definitely could be, and I think it's a little silly because at the end of the day, both Camp Hask and Camp Simcha are amazing institutions, and both do amazing things for a lot of people, and it's a little bit silly that they're viewed as being like, in a way, I don't know, in a way conflicting, or there's beef, whatever." And Ellie said, that's a very important point to be aware of, and something that could be interesting for us to discuss. So I think maybe let's talk about that a bit.
All right,
awesome.
Awesome. So I would use the word unfortunate rather than silly in my personal opinion, because
that's definitely a better word for sure. Yeah.
Because I don't think that there is malintent on any party. I think that the way the cards have fallen is that there's conflict between the two, and I would say that that's unfortunate. But I would say that we could bring this to a more broad conversation to really attack the crux of the issue, which is plural organizations with the same mission conflicting with each other. Because me personally, I prefer to talk about concepts rather than people, and Hask and Simcha are not people, but they are organizations with a lot of personality. So
Yes, definitely.
so they may as well be people. So I don't want to talk in specifics, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
I would much rather talk in generalities, that it's unfortunate when two people can have the same goal but not be working on the same team. And I think that is a symptom of gullus, because it seems like the paradigm for getting along would be to have the same interests. And yet still we see that people with the same interests can not get along. So I think that that's a symptom of gullus, and I'm very curious, what are your thoughts how we can alleviate that?
Yeah, an interesting take to view it from that perspective of like it being a result of being gullus. It's definitely true. I mean, if you think about it, that kind of is the direct symptom of gullus.
Gullus,
right?
Sinas Chinam.
Right, 100%. And to think about like
it doesn't get any more chinam than Sinas Chinam means baseless hatred, and it doesn't get any more baseless than two people who are literally on the same page disagreeing with each other.
Yeah. So definitely unfortunate. That's for sure. So it's obviously a very big issue that is manifested in a lot of ways and has definitely very drastic effects in certain areas. I think that one good way to address it is to find, I don't know exactly how, but find some way of exposing different, whatever it might be, different communities that are in conflict, different institutions that are in conflict, different, whatever it might be, in whatever context, expose them to the benefits and at least to expose them to the perspective that the whatever other institution or organization or group might have, because I think a lot of these types of conflicts stem from just a lack of awareness and a lack of familiarity with the other side, I guess, as you might say it.
Yeah.
Meaning a lot of people fail to appreciate the positive value of other perspectives, other ideas, particularly because they just are unfamiliar with what the priorities of those perspectives are. Meaning, just to elaborate a bit, I think, let's say, to give an example, I know we didn't want to get so much into people things, but just to, I guess, highlight this idea. I think that, let's say, within YU, right? I think a lot of people have. Okay, this is a good example. I'll bring this up. So, I'm sure a lot of you listeners have heard, a big gadol in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, passed away, unfortunately, a week ago today.
See, I'm just going to quickly insert a comment here.
Sure.
There are some people right now who are livid at the fact that you called him a big gadol. Like, there are people who are livid about that.
Right. And that's very unfortunate, is what I would say.
It's unfortunate that we can both revere somebody, yet not have the same title for them.
Right. So however he is to be described.
Yeah. Sar HaTorah, Maran Harav Hagadol.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Rav Chaim Kanievsky. He's definitely a Rav. He definitely was a Rav. No one could take that away from him.
And his name was...
His name was Chaim. So a lot of people have been talking about his passing at YU over the last week or so. And I've heard it mentioned a lot of times how us being in YU and mostly, being familiar with the, I guess, more modern Orthodox hashkafa in a broad sense, often view people like Rav Chaim Kanievsky and the perspectives that he had on different things with very negative light, because a lot of the things that he said might not necessarily have
aligned with modern Orthodox.
Exactly, aligned with modern Orthodox values. No politics here, no judgments here.
Right.
At a very simple level, I think the statement that I made is probably correct. Now, I think that this is definitely a perspective that I had when thinking about Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and I think that a lot of people had, was that we kind of viewed these perspectives with a negative light, meaning we would see a certain statement that was made or a certain policy that was dictated, and we would say, oh, that contradicts with my values, I really think negatively of that. So I could say that was the case for me, and I think speaking to a lot of my peers at YU, I think a lot of people felt the same way. But what a lot of people who have spoken about Rav Chaim at YU have said is that while that might be true, that things that he said maybe did not fit in 100% with modern Orthodox values, it is very, very important to appreciate the positive things about Rav Chaim Kanievsky and all of the good that he contributed, regardless of whatever personal differences he may have had with us, right? Obviously, he was a tremendous Talmid Chacham, he's a tremendous Torah scholar, and he did amazing things for a lot of people, who were dealing with personal issues and different whatever it might have been. And he was obviously a tremendous leader within the religious community in Israel. And it's very important to appreciate the positive things about that. And while it might be true that with regard to certain things, his priorities and opinions maybe didn't align with ours, it's very important to appreciate all the positive things about him and his perspective. So this is just one example, but I hope that it brings the idea I was discussing before, like a little more to light, how people need to appreciate the positive things about others and not like get, I think that this conflict which we have been discussing, it's obviously manifest in a lot of ways, but it often stems from just a lack of familiarity. Meaning, for me, like, I just never fully appreciated, the godless of Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Obviously, I knew that he was a big Torah scholar, but hearing a lot of what's been said about him in terms of his Torah scholarship over the last week, and hearing of the stories about like the amazing things he did for others who were struggling to have children or had difficult health issues or personal matters, whatever, and to like think about what he did and really take a step back, I'd be like, wow, like that's really amazing. So I think obviously, like, on a larger scale, implementing this is a little more difficult. Meaning it might be a little bit hard to expose like the masses to like the perspectives of others. Like, that's very hard to implement, and it would have to be done in a proper, organized way. But I think in a general sense, like just becoming familiar with the perspectives of others and trying to focus on the positive elements, even if like certain elements might not speak out to someone. I think that would help address this issue a lot, and it would definitely decrease the conflict and decrease the sinas chinam out there, which hopefully will help take us out of Galus.
Wow, Mirz Hashem. Yeah, I it's so funny because I was thinking of pretty much the same exact example, just on a more macro level, between the ultra-Orthodox and modern Orthodox communities. But I completely agree with what you said, and I'm curious, would you be able to elaborate on what you think ought to be done?
Mm-hmm. So again, yeah, when I think about it, it just seems like a little bit hard to address because it's obviously like a very like big issue that's manifested in a lot of ways. But I think that like definitely something that could be done is in every community to have some form of education about, like from a young age, to have some form of education about other communities and their priorities and their values, through that, like through becoming aware of other communities and the positive things about them and understanding the differences properly, that'll help people be able to appreciate other communities. And maybe obviously different communities don't agree with each other. Different communities don't, they approach things differently. But if they're able to appreciate the differences between them and other communities, I think that's something great. Like I know for me personally, I never really had such a good concept of the priorities and the balance and like the balances that different communities take. And I was often very confused about this for a long time. Like, why is it that certain Jews do this, certain Jews do that? We disagree about this. We have these different conflicts. Something that actually helped me a lot was actually a weekly it was called a VAD that I had colloquially I guess you could call it just more of a lesson, I guess, a lesson on Hashkafa that I had. It was like a once a week thing given by, his name's Rav Ezra Shapiro in Shalvim. So what Rav Ezra Shapiro did over the course of the year was he discussed the different communities within the Jewish, the broader religious Jewish community.
Wow.
And he broke down very, very succinctly. Should retake English too, probably. So he broke down within each community what that community prioritizes and what that community values. Meaning, for example, something Rav Ezra Shapiro said was within the let's say more ultra Orthodox community, they're balancing the same priorities that we have, right? They think that learning Torah is very important. They think that commitment to Jewish values is very important. They think that supporting a family and continuing the legacy of the Jewish people is very important. They think they think that in general the idea of a Jewish homeland in Israel is important within a Torah perspective. However, that's manifest with the current state of Israel. Obviously, that they might have a different view from let's say the typical modern Orthodox person, whatever. But they do hold that as a value, and within their perspective, they balance things a little bit differently than we do. Meaning, they, let's say, look at the priority of Talmud Torah, and they maybe give a lot more credence to that than to let's say, having a profession, or let's say having a profession through formal education that's going to support a family. They definitely agree that it's important to support a family, and that's definitely a strong value, but it's just valued differently than it is within our community. So I think having this VAD and discussing all the different hashkafas out there, that really exposed me to the balances between different communities and helped me appreciate a lot about like why it is that certain communities do things this way, certain communities do things that way, and it obviously it's still often hard to deal with, because it's very easy for me to see certain community doing something differently from me, and like try to criticize that. But in a general sense, that helped me be able to relate to these things in a very different way. So I think in terms of going back to what we were saying before about like how this is to be implemented. So I think to have some form of education similar to that model that my Rabbi Shapiro had in Shalvim, of educating people about like the differences between communities and differences in priorities, or maybe the lack of differences in priorities, but just the difference in how those priorities are balanced. And if people like are able to understand that, that would kind of help address this issue a lot, because there wouldn't be as drastic different, there wouldn't be as drastic conflicts, being that everyone would be aware of why they do things a certain way, why others do things a certain way, and they'd be much more accepting of that.
Wow, I really like the way you put that, and it's just a great, I don't know if you were taking it as a visual, but a great visual that at its core, we all have the same values. We're just balancing it differently.
Yeah.
And I'm just visualizing that as a pyramid, and you're placing the blocks in different places, but you still have the same shape.
Exactly. And that's definitely something that hit me a lot when throughout the year that I went to this VAD, was that when you come to think of it, like there really isn't that much of a difference between let's say the modern Orthodox community, the ultra Orthodox community, the Hasidic community. Like it just all the difference stems from is a few minor differences in how priorities are balanced. That's really all it comes down to. And when you like have that perspective on things, and like I never appreciated this because I just like viewed we're this type of Jew, they're that type of Jew, and when you understand, you appreciate like how, I mean, obviously like you really only can appreciate it like if you actually get a good understanding of it, and then that's through becoming educated about it. But when you're able to do that, it's like mind blowing to think about how like the differences between Jews are different types of Jews really aren't that great. I think again a lot of these differences stem from us being in Gullus and having and there being a lack of like formal way of doing things that existed back when the Jewish people was like all in Israel, all under the same leadership and guidance. Right now we're unfortunately broken up into many different areas, many different communities, and over the years it's kind of diverged into different, I mean unfortunately, but different groups in terms of perspectives on certain ideas and approaches to different things throughout life, and if you think about it that way, it all stems from us being in Galus, and it was caused by Sinas Chinam, and it continues to create more Sinas Chinam. And I think that again, through like understanding other communities and through like realizing that there's really not so much of a difference, and appreciating the priorities that other people's have and trying to learn from them and gain from them, will definitely could help address this issue of the conflict between different communities and like just overall the Sinas Chinam that results from being in Galus.
I really like the way you put that. Yeah, I completely agree. I feel terrible, but because this conversation is going so wonderfully.
Oh yes, yeah, I'm
absolutely loving this. I just feel bad. I have something that I have to go to now, so to be continued.
To be continued, yeah.
All right.
Excellent. We'll definitely make a part 2 for this, for sure.
Definitely. This definitely needs a part 2, possibly even a part 3.
We'll see. And if anyone listening has any input or comments or questions or anything related to anything we discussed, like definitely feel free to post. And we would love to incorporate those comments into our next part of this series, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Conversation and Calculation, episode 19/20. And please remember to like and subscribe. And I was just reading about reminding people to like and subscribe, that apparently it's actually a very powerful psychological tool. It's not just something that YouTubers say like, "Hey guys, remember to like and subscribe." It's actually extraordinarily powerful. The power of suggestion. But whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, peace.